Welcome to the Essence of Homeschooling podcast, brought to you by the umbrella school, Stateros Academy. We empower and equip you to cultivate the authentic homeschool lifestyle where freedom and relationships rule.
Last time we talked about the importance of community and building community and staying in community and how to act and how to be in community. You may or may not be able to find a homeschool group that's a good fit for you, depending on where you live and what's available. So it might come down to you just connecting with one or two other families that you find that might be at least somewhat like-minded, and then creating your own co-op, your own little homeschool group in your homes. And that was something that I was able to join with a couple other families as part of our story. Over the years, we did a lot of really fun things that I thought I would share with you guys. And I know Colleen and Michelle have a lot of other ideas too that will pop in. But I'll just jump right in with the list if that's okay, Colleen. One thing that we did, generally speaking, was we had pretty much weekly gatherings. We traded houses or we would meet at different parks. So nobody felt like they had to have their house clean every single week. It was very relaxed, and we would be able to just have kind of a change of scenery, which was nice. So we did all kinds of things. Some were academic, some were more on the spiritual side, some were relational. A fun thing that we did one time was a backyard camp out. So we had another homeschool family, just one other family at the time, come on over, and we had one of those little backyard patio fireplaces, fire pit things. And so the kids roasted hot dogs and marshmallows, and the adults stayed out there with them, and we played games and just had fun doing that on the back patio. And then the dads helped the kids set up the tents in the backyard, and they camped out in the backyard that night. And looking back at the pictures, super fun. We also did our own science fair one year. We had several families that year, and each of the kids worked on a science project of some sort. One of my kids did something on astronomy. The other one did something on little teeny tiny creatures. I want to say they're not triceratops. That's the dinosaur. I'll think of the name in a minute. But these little things that you hatch them in water. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but that was a fun little thing to look into. He talked about fossils and things like that. And it was really fun. We had some grandparents join in so they would have more of an audience. And our kids had a chance to do a little bit of public speaking in front of their friends and be able to present something. That was a good opportunity. We've other done things focused on nature, such as nature walks. And sometimes we shared science lessons. We did things outdoors. The curriculum that we were using had all kinds of experiments and activities. We did the classic owl pellets. We did eggs in vinegar, all those kind of fun things, baking soda and vinegar volcanoes. So we made messes and we learned things together, and it was super fun. We also had oral report days where the kids would have chances to take turns sharing something in front of their friends. And that was good because they knew they were just talking to their friends, and they would sometimes be a little bit silly, but it was also a good chance for them to learn how to be good listeners and give respect to whoever was talking. Another mom came up with a VBS, Vacation Bible School style curriculum, and we split it up and we took turns teaching. So the kids would have the Bible lesson that week and learn all those fun things and do all those kinds of fun activities. Another good practice that we had was giving at least one other mom a break. So my friend might drop her kids off at my house and I would teach them a lesson, whatever it was that day. She would have a whole day, or at least 4 hours or so at least, to herself to do whatever she wanted to do. Go grab coffee, go to an appointment, do whatever she wanted. And obviously this is great if you have more than just two families. It's great with 3 or 4 families, but it works no matter what you do. That was super fun and very helpful in giving each other a break. And it was funny. I remember one time I had this other family's kids with us. So I had 6 kids at the park, and we were doing some kind of science activity. And a neighbor walked out. This park was across the street from us. He's like, all these kids. She said, they're all so well behaved. Oops. Well, thank you. And so it was kind of a good little testament to what we were doing, but that was fun. And obviously, you can still do things like field trips, museums together are fun, the zoo, the pumpkin patch, candy factory. When you have field trips, a very practical and really helpful tool is if there's one mom in your group that will be sort of the field trip mom. I don't know if you remember having that back in school or if your kids were in school in the past, there would be a field trip mom who would be in charge of planning all the field trips. One year, the mom that was the field trip mom planned things that I never would have thought of. And they were practical things like we got a special trip to the police station. And another time we got to go to the water treatment plant. So interesting things when you have other people chiming in and planning things, it takes the pressure off you and you get to do things that you maybe would not have thought of. There's also service projects that you could do together as a group. One year we did that craft where you take a felt blanket, or maybe felt's not the right word, and you cut little strips on the sides and then you tie the strips in little knots and you sort of make the blankets pretty. You put a couple together, I think. And we were able to share those with a retirement center. We had contacts at a retirement community. And so I think it was at Christmas time, our friend took these over to the retirement community and shared them with the residents there. If you can think of something like that, it's a good co op idea. You can also
think
get together for classes that are taught by other people. My dad taught our teenagers from 3 or 4 different families Bible classes for several years in our basement. It was a wonderful opportunity. And then, of course, you can always have your Christmas or your other holiday parties and just make sure that you share the load. Who's going to bring the food? Who's going to bring prizes or presents for games and activities, things like that. This was a real fun one that we did. We had a not back to school day at the pool, and we would kind of drive past the local elementary school to get to our neighborhood pool, and we had it all to ourselves. And we had our little not back to school party on the local everybody else's elementary first day of school. That was super fun. And then lastly, kind of more on a relational side with parents, we had a group that we enjoyed praying together and for each other. And if that's something that is important in your life or just supporting each other on more of a deeper level, that was really meaningful for us because we had a chance and a way to grow those kinds of relationships. Then we were able to care for each other. If someone was ill, someone had a surgery or whatever it was, we could take turns sharing meals, doing laundry for each other, childcare, shopping, and things like that. And then the last one on my list to share, I wanted to share today was we did a meal swap. And so I would make 4 meals in kind of a meal batch baking. And each of my friends would do the same thing. And we'd get together one day and we would swap these freezer meals out. And that was a lot of fun. And again, our kids got a chance to try foods that were new to them. And if there were days that I thought, oh my goodness, I can't do one more thing, I knew I had a meal in the freezer. I could pull it out. So those were some fun things that we did in our little co-op that we created.
I remember early on a lot of the things you were saying, doing things around the interests of your kids. If it's science interests, if it's park days, these are all very important things to be doing together and so helpful to do together because it allows you to rely on another person's strength and let them read. And then it gives you opportunities to learn your own skills and where you actually enjoy what aspect of homeschooling you enjoy. And so as you were talking, I had to think through, gosh, what kind of things have I been involved in? And I do remember, I guess this is when my love of creating things around literature really started. And it was just preschool. It was 2 and 3 year olds and 4 year olds. And I just had this idea of how am I going to get to know my neighbors? how is my child going to make other friends? So I started just a craft and story time in my yard. It was a townhome community, and we started with that. And I would read a book to all the kids, and then we would do a craft around it.
Fun.
And it was in the neighborhood. So any kid who walked by, we said, please join us. Anybody we met at a park, we said, hey, our kids are having fun together. Would they want to come to this? And it grew. And I did that for 2 or 3 years. And it was a lot of fun. It created friendships for my children. So that was really important. And that can be just starting at very young ages. How can you overlap and do life together and live in community and give yourself a break and give another mom a break? Those are all great things because we need one another.
Yeah.
Another thing, it was a group of boys. I had 2 boys. Most of my friends had boys at that time. And we called it the BLT Club, which was boys learning together. So we started a BLT. And that group, we were all interested in exploring homeschooling, but didn't know if it's what we would do. There were 4 of us moms, all with boys. Some of us had 2 boys, some just one, but we took turns teaching and we would meet together every week. One mom had been a doctor. Well, she decided to stay home with her child. So she had a brilliant idea of on a white t shirt, she drew the heart and the valves, and they all got to wear their heart outside themselves, right? Learn how the heart worked because that was her strength. So hers would have bent more to the science. We would take themes, and for me, I'd always had to have a book that I go off of. So if I was doing weather, we'd still read a book about weather. And then I threw a wide variety of clothes in the middle of the floor. And I said, oh, it's cold outside. What are you going to wear? And they would have to go scramble in all the clothing and figure out what they're going to wear.
Are you looking for a supportive community to walk with you through your homeschooling journey? Look no further. Statheros Academy is your go-to umbrella school for fulfilling legal reporting requirements in Colorado. But what if you don't live in Colorado? We still serve you through our support tools and services. At Statheros Academy, we're not just another institution. We're your partners in education, providing comprehensive support services designed to empower, encourage, and equip you to be the best homeschool parent that your children deserve. Teacher and student IDs, parent and professional evaluations, attendance logs, record-keeping services, DIY high school transcripts, or our official homeschool high school transcript service produces personalized transcripts that highlight your students' unique accomplishments. High school diplomas celebrate your family's achievement when you successfully complete the adventure. Additionally, our experienced homeschool coaches provide one-on-one support throughout your journey. Custom tailor your homeschool support system by selecting one of our 3 enrollment packages based on your family's needs. This way, you can get exactly what you need to make the most of your homeschooling experience. We come alongside you in the way you want to be supported, whether that's the bare minimum or holding your hand each step of the way. The Umbrella School Statheros Academy provides what you want the way you want it. So why wait? Enroll with Statheros Academy today and unlock a world of possibilities for your homeschooling journey. Go to theumbrellaschool.com to learn more and sign up. We can't wait to serve your family.
These are ways to have fun, but learn together and make learning fun. And then some of these friends had other friends who had daughters. And so that summer, we decided that we would add the girls in. So we were no longer a BLT group, but we put on a play. We put on the 3 Little Pigs because it's something you can just tell what kid doesn't like to huff and puff and blow a house down or knock it down, right? And every age could do it. So by this time, most of us would have had 2 kids. And so We had roles for the little kids, but it became a thing that we did art and we could practice music and we could practice drama and we could practice memorization and even little reading bit. And then we invited the neighbors and put it on in our backyard. So these are all fun things. And all I could keep thinking of were the stuff I did as little kids, because then we started in a formal co op, which was super helpful. It was a well organized co op that the leader's job was to lead. He still taught one class or two classes, but it was mandatory that everybody shared in the duty.
Mm.
There was a drama program because someone had the strength in drama, excellent drama program. And there were people who taught science because they came from a science background. This doctor friend of mine joined it, cut her practice kind of in half so that she could still be home with her kids, but still practice medicine. So everybody finds a way to do it. There were people who had been lawyers who could teach debate and different things. Everybody had a role, but I always seemed to have young kids. So I always stayed with the little kid, but that mattered so
Mhm.
that the people could teach my middle schoolers or my elementary schoolers classes, or once they got into high school, that they could get a real science class. So in that particular setting, it was all hands on deck. It was a true co op where everybody was pitching in. We did have a fee to help pay for the space and any things that were needed, but everybody was participating. Nobody was getting paid to teach. That was one of the best co ops I've ever been in. And it's where I really learned a lot on how to step up and teach my kids what they need to learn, because I had examples of people who had gone before me who were doing the same thing.
Definitely a strength of getting involved in a co-op, whether it's formal or not formal, working together or playing to their strengths. Yeah, that's brilliant. Those are fun ideas.
One thing we did as a family, because your family can be your own fun place, relying on each other's strengths or trying to explore what each of your children's strengths are. So we did something we called Fine Arts Fridays.
Mhm.
Of course, there are times the kids moaned and groaned, but then we also learned, oh, invite some adult friends to join. So we would invite some single friends who would come and share their talent. And then the kids started to have so much fun with it. But we have so many fun memories around doing that. One of my sons decided his fine art was going to be a speech about why we are supposed to keep chocolate in the house. And my kids still quote him talking about keeping chocolate in the house. We had their choir teacher, it was choir through church, but that choir teacher came and joined us on one of the Fine Art Friday night. She shared an instrument that we hadn't seen. It might have been the dulcimer.
Fun.
Anyway, she shared her talent, and it was a great way to see what kids are capable of, what they like doing, what they can do. At one time, one of my daughters was just 2, so her fine art was all her facial expression. And as you build those things, those are ideas on how to keep your kids together, explore interest, explore other things. There's also the idea that we also have to be willing to volunteer.
Mm.
Sports teams always needed. I ended up coaching soccer. It's probably been over a decade now that I've coached soccer because they just needed coaches. And I played. So it's not like I didn't know the rules, but it was a different experience to coach. Probably better with the younger kids, but still that willingness to volunteer and to pitch in and to realize that each of these different skills matter in building community, in making a co op work. Everybody actually has a role to play.
Yes, absolutely. And I like how your co-op was infant through 12th grade. It really is that one room schoolhouse kind of feel at times. It may or may not work out that way, but it's kind of fun when it does. Your older kids get experience with the littles and things like that. That's really fun.
And you taught school, Kim. You had parents you still had to rely on, right? To organize field trips, to be there for certain events, homeroom moms, whatever. Everybody has a place to pitch in. There are organized things that go on, like sports or music or the nature centers. You're using those docents or those forest rangers and those teachers in music and sports. But there's also things like speech and debate or drama clubs. And yes, these are things that may cost money, certainly a lot of the drama club and the sports and the music. But also, if there's ways that you can pitch in to help, sometimes it can lower the fee, or sometimes it just shows your kid you support them in their interest. So,
Mm.
those are all good ways to be involved as well. Now, Kim, I think you had one thing you wanted to say about the difference between socialization versus socializing.
Yes, thanks for reminding me. In homeschool circles, the question that we're always asked is, but what about socialization? And sometimes there's that sort of knee jerk reaction to just shrug that off as, oh, there's that question again. But to be fair, it really is a good question because you don't want your kids to be completely isolated. But these days, I have to tell you, the trouble really is when do we stay home and get the work done? Because we're out doing so many other things. We don't want our kids to all be cookie cutter kids, exactly the same, all the same kinds of cookies in the same cookie box or cookie package. We want them to be unique and individuals, but at the same time, we don't want them to be isolated. And being in community and socializing, talking with other people, even if they're not your same age, older people, younger children is super important. And I think in another podcast, maybe Michelle, you talked about how we're created for community and we're created to be together. Even if you are an introvert, like I am an introvert, I can speak to this. It's still good to get out and be with other people and have that support and have someone else challenge you or be able to challenge other people or just be in friendship and community like that. One of my favorite quotes is by C.S. Lewis, and he said, friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. And I love that,
You can always count on C.S. Lewis.
right? Definitely a favorite.
And these are all different ways of finding friendship. It's not that they're all going to be your best friends,
Right.
but you will make friends. And sometimes they are for, as the old saying goes, a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Mhm.
And so sometimes there is just a season that you have these friendships. Sometimes it's just the reason you all are educating together. So do it. You need one another. Your kid needs you to need one another and rely on one another. And then sometimes out of that, you find the golden treasure. A beautiful bond is created.
Yes.
Like our last podcast, right, where we were talking about how to find, create, and behave in community. It's still going to take risk, but it's all worth it. And each one has a place to add something beautiful. The beauty of home education is being able to create the environment where your kids can learn and being able to choose the friends that you want them around. But it also takes being willing to participate in those. But through these co op ideas, I hope you find something fun that you can do for your family that you can enjoy and that you can enjoy the gift of learning together.
And maybe these will spark some ideas. Maybe you can use this as a springboard for other ideas for your community group that's specific to you and your family and your situation.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. Be sure to check out today's show notes for all applicable links and additional resources. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Your support helps us continue to bring you great content. Until next time, happy homeschooling.